Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation today. So today we have a slightly longer presentation. We're looking at the intro to Optigo Connect and Optigo OneView. So this is one of our softwares here, kind of taking all the theory and everything we've learned over the last few weeks now, and we're going to try apply it or show how we can use this and how our function, our features of our software actually benefits all these and makes use of this. So today we've slightly changed the presenters. It's myself as usual now, and we are also with Brian Hewson, so he's the Director of Business Development here at Optical Networks. He'll be helping us run through the product here.
Good morning, good afternoon.
So yeah, as usual, guys, questions, ask away. Just use the chats here on the side, or just raise a hand. It's very much stop us throughout the presentation, stop us as we are going. You don't need to wait till the end at all. After the presentation is over, we will have a survey, so please fill it out. Any positive, any ways we can improve, anything. We're always looking to tailor fit our presentations and make them as optimal as possible. So please don't be afraid. And then we will be uploading this to YouTube as well. So if there's anyone you think that could benefit from this, or if you ever want to look back on these, youtube.com, Optical Networks, that's where you'll be able to find information. Then finally, our next webinar will be next Tuesday, April 28th at 10:30 a.m. PST or 1:30 a.m. EST. And we'll be looking at some of the common problems with BACnet, or some of the common BACnet problems people run into and how to solve these or how to tackle these. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to go ahead and work off our actual demo system. So rather than a few slides, we're actually going to go straight in and look at the system here itself. So when we first log on, this is what we're going to see. This is the first page. All I've done here is logged in for us. So we're going to see the dashboard of our Optigo OneView system. Now, our OneView system, I think when we were looking at managed and unmanaged switches there, excuse me, the last day, we were looking at how we can have a main centralized management system. So what this here is, this is our centralized management system for monitoring all of our BACnet devices, all of our managed switches in a centralized spot. So here's our dashboard, and we're just going to run through and show you how this works or how our one works in the function of it. So when we first log on here, we're going to see our uptime. It's going to be one of our first counters or one of our first indicators. So with these forward here, and what we find is what we want to be able to do, as we were saying with the centralized management, the key part of this, or one of the main advantages, is we're not jumping from switch to switch, and we're not trying to search or scour our kind of network for the relevant information. We have this system that's going to find it for us, and it's going to drag it all to one spot. We're able to just jump on, have a look, and be able to see quite immediately how our network is doing, or if there's any large or outstanding issues. So when we first log on here, we're going to be able to see the uptime. So the uptime is our the number of days that our system has been up for. So when we see 49 days there, it's been up for 49 days, almost about 20 minutes, we go up 50. But we know now if we have no scheduled work, if we have no one has been on, none of our IT or none of our guys running our system have been on the OneView, no one has made any configuration changes. If we see that drop down to 2, there's obviously been an issue. So very quickly, we can see that the system has been up for how long it's been up and if it has been down. So we can know ourselves that we're watching when there's schedules, if there's been no power outages or anything, we shouldn't see that changing without us knowing. So it's a very quick one. Has something changed unbeknownst to us? That's worrying, that's an issue, we'll look into that. The next indicator is the unit temperature. So the unit temperature is obviously just the temperature of the devices in our network. So we can let that, I think it's about 70 degrees Celsius is where it starts to get dangerous, and that's when actually the physical components in your devices can start to get fried or damaged. So that's where we need to keep an eye on this. The unit temperature here, 40.5 degrees Celsius, that's fine. We shouldn't really see that climbing too much. There may be different ones where, you know, comms rooms, every network is different and we have different systems. We may have a time where there's a comms room and at a certain point of the day, a lot of the machines are being run full throttle. That will increase the temperature a little bit, may decrease it a little bit, but obviously it's only when we're getting up to around past 65, 70 or so that we're kind of starting to get worried about the physical heat or the physical condition of our components inside the devices themselves. After this, we'll then look at the edge switches online. So the edge switches online, kind of self-explanatory. There's a number of edge switches online in this at the moment. However, you're going to see just beneath it that we have 2 out of 2 online. So what we want to actually show here is that when we jump onto a system, we might have 7 switches on the system, but if we jump on and we see 6 out of 7 online, obviously we're missing one. So it's just a very quick, easy way. One of the key advantages of our centralized management system is that we can just, with one login, after looking at one page, we can see all of our switches are up. We don't need to go pinging, or we don't need to go trying to log on or check statuses of different devices. We can just see very quickly everything is up. This makes it very easy as well if we're monitoring or even providing service to a number of people. We can just quickly jump onto a number of different of these and quickly see it. Just cuts down time or the amount of effort put in by the engineer or the OT operator themselves. So when we see 2 out of 2, it's 2 out of the fraction there. It's 2 out of 2 online. So it is good practice. So we would often recommend that if you take a switch out of your network, or if you have, as we say, we have 7 in the network, and we go to replace one with another switch due to maybe something for some reason needs to be replaced, we will now have the new switch register, and that would be 8 registered switches. We'll have 7 out of 8. So it's easy to see here. We want to keep a simple fraction, like a full fraction, or a full sum here. We want to see 2 out of 2 or 3 out of 3, so that when we see a fraction, we see 1 out of 2, or when we start seeing anything that's less than a full fraction there, we know one of our switches has jumped, or one of our switches has been lost or gone down. So we don't want to be getting used to seeing fractions here. Then we go on to our ports connected. So we have our edge switches connected. That's the number of edge switches. Now we have the number of devices on those switches. So we have 2 switches and we have 4 ports connected here. Now obviously, this being our demo system, these can grow and get quite a lot bigger. And it's really with only two edge switches and 4 ports. That could probably be, it's not the biggest one, but when this grows and you're dealing with large colleges or you're dealing with large corporations, this really starts to, the benefits of this really start to come through. So then we go down to our optical ports. So for this this demo itself, this is a demo on our Spectra system. So our Spectra system is a PON system, also known as a passive optical network system, in which case we have a single mode fiber cable RAN, and then we actually have optical splitters that are going to come off this. So this really reduces the cost of the amount of cables that need to be purchased. You don't need a home run from each device or each switch back to our network controller or back to our aggregation switch. We can actually just have one piece of fiber ran that way. We have 8 ports, so we can actually have 8 different runs in different directions. So obviously we're not having to loop around or go any opposite ways if we don't want to. So we can have 8 different connections, or we can have 4 different redundant connections if we're doing a loop or some system like that. So here we're able to look at this quickly when we jump on, and we can see optical link up and the temperature of the actual switch itself. So here you're able to see just statuses and some details like this. Another key advantage here is when we're seeing no SFP, that means no SFP is in the port, so that port is considered not to be expected to be up. So we're going to have a black little link status saying no SFP. However, if we were to then jump and we were to see that we had an SFP or a system must have gone down, a connection must have actually gone down, we are then going to be able to see a red link down here. So it will jump out and will become a lot easier for us to know it straight away. As we say, jump on the unit status, first log in, and very quickly we can kind of be quite sure nothing has gone too wrong, or we can immediately see something needs to be fixed or something needs to be changed. So it is just this quick, easy way to jump on and make very quickly get a very good read of the system. We will also have this on the left-hand side, and this will be here at all times. So if at any stage you are on here doing different work and you see one of these turn red, it becomes obvious or abundantly clear very quickly. Please also, if anyone does have questions, just don't be afraid to raise a hand or to jump up at any stage and ask or to interrupt there. So after we've looked at our unit status and we can be confident that nothing is there's nothing jumping out at us as a major issue, we can go down and we have configuration. So our configuration here, this is one of the first things we will do when we are originally setting up or using our setup for our GUI. We're going to obviously have to set the management IP address. We're setting up our system, sorry. We have the management IP address, the subnet mask, the default gateway, and the VLAN ID we're going to place it on. So it can be edited quite easily. See, I'm not going to go making any edits here now as I want to continue using this as a demo, but yes, we have this, and you'll see here VLAN 10, just slight recommendation is that we generally do try to keep away from VLAN 1. It's just often the generic default VLAN and different systems, so it can have issues. We generally say to try to keep off that, but that's where we could figure that, and if we did need to at any stage change it, we could. General, so we have a little bit of information here. Some general, we have the date and time settings. Obviously, we do want to keep them up to date. We want to make sure that is correct. And then we have the system name and system description. So this is actually extremely beneficial when it comes to providing a service or monitoring a number of sites or having a number of clients, or we might be jumping onto different systems. It does become very, very handy when it becomes when you make it your habit or your routine to name the system with a conventional name that kind of shows this is this organization in this location, this branch or so, and just a simple name that kind of lets you quickly know exactly which one you're looking on. Make sure that if you have a client with a number of branches or a number of different areas, even different countries, that we're not looking at the wrong one. You can also have a system description that just lets us share with each other any information about the system that might be to do with here. This is a known issue, this is a regular thing, be sure to check out for this, and just help us that we're different engineers or different people jumping on at any time. We're prepared and we have the best. Once again, it's just setting yourself up to have the best, be able to find the issues, monitor things, and not be wasting time figuring out stuff that someone else in our organization knows, or figuring out things that once again we can have the system have prepared for us. We can back up and restore. Our databases, obviously good to take backups from time to time, good to do regularly, monthly or so, just so you have a backup of the configuration, and if you do go making changes or something, you can roll back as well to anything. You can roll back to another, you can roll back to a version, or you can go back to something that had been working before. You can also just check everything and make sure that if something goes down, that we can check back and there wasn't an issue previously. We have our advanced settings here. We have our STP, our spanning tree protocol. So this is for obviously our loops, as we said, with our ports, as you can see here. We have different means of connecting things, and if we want, we can have two connections. So spanning tree just makes it aware of what spanning tree does, allow you to have redundant connections without having broadcast loops or broadcast storms as a result of the loops created. We then have frequency error correction. This is more, it's more for kind of advanced. If you're using this feature, there's a lot going on with your network. It's trying to find some of the errors, so it shouldn't really be used too much on a regular day-to-day basis. This is more when things are getting serious, so we shouldn't usually have to have. It's more of a if you're contacting us for support, you may have to use this, or I get you to use this, but this shouldn't be in your day-to-day. And then finally, collection. So collection is more trying to say, so we're collecting information as the OneView system does. We're going to collect this information, try put it, display it nicely, and have it all there for you, even with our unit status there. But what we also want to be able to do is we just can click collection. This will almost do a more detailed one. It'll take a bit longer to gather the information, but it'll give us a bit more detail if needs be, for obviously troubleshooting or looking at something when we're trying to tackle something on site. We need a bit more specific detail. We can go kind of more of a granular look at everything.
Yeah, something to note there on the collection as well is it is going to consume a little bit more bandwidth because there's more data. So it's going to take a bit more of a performance hit, but definitely helpful when we're trying to hunt down a problem.
Yes, definitely. Nice one. And so next we go on to our lasers. So quite similar to our optical ports that we had looked at. These are just the optical ports again that we're looking in more detail. These are our lasers, our fiber connections. So this is using our light rather than our electricity. So we can turn these on and off. We can turn it, so we can turn that on and off if needs be. These ports, only 2 through 8 are not being used at the moment. So we have our optical port 1 link up. We can just check the status and we can enable or disable as needs be. We also use this here for our redundancy settings. So we do not have redundancy set up on our demo system, but how this works is if we were to try edit these. So if we were to go try edit our system, we can then we can change this. So we have a unit redundancy mode. We can change this from standalone to strict. And then here we would go setting up our redundancy settings where we have our peer IP address. We have our peer connection. We can see if that's connected. We can see when it comes up when the two of them are speaking to each other. And then finally we can sync the configuration databases on the two to make sure they're effectively the one system. So we do have documents of this as well, how to set up. And when we're doing this, we'll be turning off ports on either side, making sure that we have both connections, and that if one connection does go down, it will fail over to the next one. So this is just it for setting up a redundancy. It makes it very handy. I don't know if some people have had to try set up redundancy or on CLIs before, or some different ways. It can be a bit more tricky. This here just makes it very nice and handy, and we also have a step-by-step guide which will do every check along the way and make it very, very simple. And then we'll go into our bandwidth. So this is once again a very strong feature of the Optigo OneView. This here kind of one of the more fun side of the OneView here. So we can look in and see our bandwidth utilization. You can see the amount of bytes, frames, a lot of detail, a lot of granular detail on what is going through the network, what is being sent. You can also do this by optical port if needs be. You can go in and check it by which connection, by which ring we're looking at, see what we're seeing in terms of error frames or discarded frames, especially that the error, I mentioned this as well, the error and discarded frames, these are two that you'll probably find yourself focusing on if you are troubleshooting or if you are trying to tackle an issue on site, because these are the ones, obviously, if you're having errors or discarded frames, that's packets that are not being sent and districts that are not being registered or taken. So what we want to do is make sure that if they're getting too high, it's not good. You don't want a network congested by error frames and discarded frames. So if you're seeing a lot of them, we can then dive into where they're coming from, what's the cause of this, or why are they not being picked up. So obviously, if we're saying see too much of these, that's a very obvious one as well. So we can just jump in and see here. We can see if you see just too many discarded frames, we can then go jumping over onto the optical ports and we can narrow that down, and we can begin diving into tackling which connection, what exactly is the result of these high frames being caused. So it just makes it very handy as well. Once again, just tackling issues, finding these, gathering this information yourself. Obviously, from 10 switches, if you don't have a centralized management system, is going to be quite time consuming, and that will obviously slow down you tackling an issue. You might be wasting quite a bit of time on trying to gather this, only to find it doesn't result or doesn't come to fruition for solving a problem. Just nice to have it there, nice to have it all in one spot. Then we go down to our versions. So our software version, well, obviously this is something that's quite important. We want to be able to know this at all. We want to be aware of this at all times. We do want to try to keep our system up to the most up-to-date version. Obviously, there'll be bug fixes, different things that can be with the new versions that'll probably keep it at the most optimal level. But at the same time, we do want to be aware of what our previous software version was that we found perfectly stable that we were using. Now, very much Optigo, we've had a good track record, I believe, of having fairly good systems that are stable. We're not having too many bugs or anything. But obviously, with all systems, good practice is that you know when the last software version you were using, where everything ran fine, or everything ran smoothly, so that when you do jump up or you do upgrade, obviously each system is individual with totally different connections to different devices. There might be something where something could just not work or some little bug. So while the team tackles that, or while that's worked on, you want to be able to jump back to the last working version. You don't want to have to go a week or two not knowing not knowing where exactly, and not having information or not being able to fully have the system operation. You also don't want to have to be jumping back trying to find maybe an older version and coming back up. So just good to be aware of this and always have note of this. So we have it there obviously for us, previous software version, easily found. Hardware version, this information, obviously this will not change, unless you're taking completely upgrading your system. We have our aggregation switch and our our network controller. So as we might be changing our switches and our edge switches and things, I don't expect it will be as often that we're going, or quite rarely that we're going to have to switch our actual controller and our aggregation switch. So here we just have the version and the MAC address. Obviously, this is just for yourself to know, or if you are in contact with support, we can know which exact model and which exact version we are dealing with, which can help us maybe look for a specific issue, or let us just be more aware of what exactly we're dealing with and narrow down the problem as quickly as possible. We're also able to upgrade the unit here if we need to, so we can revert back to an old version quite quickly and quite easily, or we can upgrade the unit to an older version. So once again, just making everything quicker and handier, especially this will push this out to all of the switches and everything on the system, so we're not having to go and do this one by one. Once again, just saving engineering time, saving effort, and just making this all easier and more intuitive. RSSI is a function of the spectra, the PON or the fiber system, which is not something that you'll have to use too much. If you were jumping on and health checking or doing things, you probably won't find yourself here. Here is more if you think you may have an issue specifically with a piece of fiber. Here's how we can go into more details. We can see how much is being transmitted, how much is being received, the power, power or how much light it is receiving it with. Obviously, with fiber, what we need to read the difference between fiber and Ethernet is that you can't have too much power in fiber. So with Ethernet, if it's on, you can go 100 meters. If your electrical signal is running, that can go about 100 meters, 300 feet before that starts to fade. We don't have that issue so much with fiber, as fiber can run for quite a long distance, a couple of kilometers or so. But you can actually have too much light if you were to have one connection too close or not being split enough. So you have your sensors, your receivers, and what they're going to do is they're going to need to be able to tell the difference between an on and an off signal. So if it's not able to tell, if you have too much light, it mightn't be able to tell when on and off is as well. So we need just to be able to look at these and see what powers we're dealing with. But once again, this is more specific, delving into the details. It's very good to have it here. This is being very useful in just certain situations, but more specific to the troubleshooting when you think there may be an issue with this fiber. But also, this information, once again, quite easily displayed for you here. It's nice to be able to click down if needed, but this is going to be difficult. Sometimes can be more difficult to look to if we want to accumulate all this information for all our different switches. Once again, 2 switches here, not the most difficult in the world, so you're doing a job twice. We're doing it we're just clicking on the tab here, but if you have a large number of switches, this becomes quite a tedious task. So then we will jump down to our edge switches. Perfect.
So under the edge switches in this system, this is a very powerful feature of a centralized management system. It shows us in one view of all the edge switches that we have connected to the system, showing their individual switch IDs and what optical port they're connected to. This could start with 1 or 2 switches and go all the way up to hundreds if we had to. From here, you can imagine that bringing in all those switches, you're going to have a lot of detail coming forward here. So the switch ID we typically don't change because that's how we use to internally organize it. But what you're going to want to play with is things like the status. Is the switch online or offline, which you can adjust from here. You can determine which optical laser the switch is on. So it's easier to have some traceability to where the switch exists within the building. It also lets us know, is the switch connected and running? Sometimes the switch, maybe the SFP port is disconnected, or there's the fiber port is disconnected, or maybe the fiber is dirty and it's not making a connection. So that's a giveaway right away to see where the issue is per switch. The other thing we like to do in the system is describe, put a description in for each switch to let you know where its location is and maybe also what it's serving, right? Level 2 server room, serving air handler 2 and 3, something similar, so that you can tell right away what's connected, where it is, and what it's doing. We show the model right away. So that's always handy in case you want to add some more stuff. Maybe that's an 8-port switch and you want to add some more things in that location. Then I know what it is and I can go online ordering and I can go find out the 24-port switch replacement and do it right from here. Shows you the MAC address of the unit. And the security tab, Tom will get into a little bit more when we reach that area, but right here, those 4 different things in there show you different aspects of the one-click secure feature that we have. It shows there's 24 ports. It would show how many rules are active or how many rules are set, how many are active, and how many devices are locked out. So it's a way that we can determine from a single glance if your security in your system is running, connected, and set correctly. In this entire GUI, the entire interface here, the whole thing is searchable. So you can search by optical port, you can search by part of the description, you can search by the switch. So you can imagine as this gets to multiple tens or hundreds of switches, finding the one you want can get more complicated. But this is a straight Boolean search. We can go through it and find exactly what you need, such as maybe connections. I don't really care about the online ones. I want to see everything that's offline. show it right away. Click into the More section, Tom. So inside of here on the edge switch directly, the transceiver information, which is the SFP. So it has some information based on that, what version it is. Occasionally we do upgrade the firmware version inside of those SFPs, so it's always good to see where it is and what you have. It allows us to help you upgrade your site in the future. Also in the edge switch information, we have the switch MAC address, the Optigo MAC address, and then the software version inside the switch itself. So these are also things that help us track what you have and track where things are going. There's cases where if you're connected to an owner's IT system and they are handling some of the core switch layer 3 functionality, that they will want this information as well. And this is where you can easily grab it and pass it along to them. One of the neat features we have here is something called the PoE budget. So as you know, PoE can be used to power surveillance cameras. It can be used to power some manufacturers' VAD boxes and whatnot. And from here, we show you the exact amount of power that this switch can deliver at 370 watts. Now that's spread across 24 ports. But when you scroll down a bit there and you see the PoE power port by port, we can actually determine what the draw is on a port by port basis. So a lot of times a standard VAD box, for example, will pull maybe 7 or 8 watts, but if it's running the actuator, maybe it's going to run up to 15 or past 20 watts of power. So in this way, we can see what the average draw is, and we can also determine at a quick glance, can we add another one? Can we add another surveillance camera that's going to pull 25 watts? In this case, you've got 370 watts to go, not a problem, but that bar will get less and less as you run out of power in your switch. In most systems, you have no idea. It's plug it in, see what happens. And we like to eliminate that and give you advance notice to actually answer the question properly. No, you can't put it on this switch. However, I have a switch right beside it and we can plug it in there. The ports page, there is another dedicated ports page, but that's, Tom will go through that next, but that is for the entire system. This is a ports page directly for this switch, and it's 24 ports that are connected. So again, the GUI is set here so that you can search all of it. You can search by VLAN ID, you can search by disconnected ports, you can search by if the PoE is on or off, and then obviously the description. But a neat feature here is if you notice the checkboxes on the left-hand side, we can make changes in a bulk fashion. So we can click the ones that we want and apply the same change. Say we want to reset the PoE in 3 ports, we can click port 2, 3, and 4, and if you reset just one of the PoE or turn one of them off, all 3 of them act on that change. Right, so it's very, very handy for doing bulk edits. Outside of that, and Tom will also go into more detail, but you can set the VLAN ID right from here. Now, if you've already predetermined the VLAN ID, then you can just select the one you want. There is a feature in here, and I only learned recently on the relevance of how big this is. When you're setting up a VLAN, typically the process is go forward, set up your VLANs, and then go back to your ports and apply them. Here, what we can do is we can actually enter a VLAN that's not set up yet. So put in, say, VLAN 300, because we know that's what we want to connect to. And this will automatically go ahead and create that VLAN and then assign it to the port without having to go somewhere else and assign it. That's a big feature. That saves an immense amount of time. And then, of course, once you're under your VLAN management, then we can go back to the list and assign color or whatever else you want to do with it. So that's a major time-saving feature and quite significant for those of you out there that have done VLAN management at some point. And again, labeling the port correctly to know what it's attached to and what it's doing is always key. If you want to go find a VAD box 1 to 30, then you can just label it here. And these are the connected daisy chain VAV boxes, and you know exactly where it is, easy to search. And then you have your security as well. Go into the security tab.
Also, I go down to the security tab. So.
Right at the top of the dialog there.
Oh, the security tab in the ports.
Yes. Sure, right there. So in here, so one-click secure has the ability to secure a port, secure a switch, and secure the entire system. In here, this particular feature is securing this, it's securing this switch. So you can either secure the inactive ports, meaning we're going to turn anything that's that doesn't have something connected to it, we're going to just turn it off. And then we're going to secure anything that's connected to it. And then the secure multi-device ports, this is a part of the daisy chain feature of some manufacturers. And we're going to secure every device that's connected off of a single port. So everything down the chain. So a lot of times there's 20 to 30, maybe 40 different MAC addresses connected to one port. We're going to make sure all of those apply to the security. As you can imagine now that we have all these connected devices, an open IP port basically sitting above the ceiling in every space. We want to make sure that we are doing our part in the fight against cybersecurity to make that very simple and to be able to lock this as simple as possible. And of course, unlocking is just like that quick. I'm going to go do some work. I want to add more devices, unlock the switch. Then when I'm done, lock the switch. We don't want to make it complicated. We're going to make it as easy as possible. And then if you close this dialog box, Tom, there's a couple of features here at the top. So at the top right, so you can do an export of this configuration, not quite that high.
So.
Yeah, just right there in the header. You can do an export of this configuration so you can save it. What else you can do is you can manually add switches. Now our whole system is based on plug and play. So you simply take a switch, plug it into the system, power it up, and it will automatically register. That saves an immense amount of steps if you're using command line interface language. However, there's a lot of cases where you want to preset this. Say you know you're going to add a switch and you're going to hand it off to a service tech, and he's going to go to site and plug it in. Well, in this case, we can simply add the switch, set it up, set the name, put it in the right location so that all he has to do is plug it in and it's ready to go. Furthermore, using this, you could actually create an entire switch connection just with the S8 and the SC600. And then once you go to site, everything would link up. So it is possible to do that. Also from here, we can do an upgrade of this edge switches directly if we ever need to do a firmware update. And then I will leave Tom to go through the ports page with you.
Perfect, thanks very much. I might actually just even jump up and say this from here. I believe just when we were looking at our PoE, we would jump on to switch 1, just as a small example for everyone here. Here's what it looks like when we do have some PoE being drawn. We see our 2% use. We see the PoE being eaten into. We can see exactly which ports we're seeing that on there.
Perfect.
So much like when we looked at the ports on the switch itself, we have all the ports here now that we're able to see on all the switches on all the devices. So here we have our ONS, so our S8, sorry, ONS S8. So this is our aggregation switch. So once again, we can see all the connections here. We can have a description. As we had mentioned, it's always good to have a description on what is connected, what's there, and as much information as you possibly give, because you can't be 100% sure that possibly even you'll be on shift when an error occurs, or you don't know who will be jumping on. So if you have a number of sites you're looking after, obviously it can be quite a lot of these problems can be quite easy to solve now once we have all the information and we have this centralized management system. So it's just good to give descriptions and just make it very easy for whoever's going to be coming on to give them all have them best equipped as they can possibly be to solve that issue. So we can have enable, disable a port here, PoE, It's not supported now on the S8. We'll scroll down. Obviously, our S8 is our fiber connections, which we are just connecting to our switches, so we do not have PoE here. We have our links up or down. If they are up, we'll be able to see what speed they're running at. You can see, is it an access port? Is it a reserved, or is it a trunk port? You see our VLANs we're having here. We have our management as well. We can change as we had done before. And as Ryan mentioned, that new function there as well, we're able to actually create a VLAN quite easily. Now, I have not saved my changes, so we won't be able to see our other VLAN that we had just created here. But it will be able to create VLANs for us and just save us, once again, a lot of configuration time. A lot of what this allows us to do as well is if a client or someone asks for help with a network or to do something for a network, we just easily can jump on and make these changes within 2 seconds, making us look even better again as a provider or providing a service when we can do these quickly and seamlessly, and we're able to monitor them, make sure that there is no issues or is no human error or faults. It takes a lot of this out of there. And we can go more into a specific port here, and we can get a bit of detail on it. Now, once again, this is our S8 aggregation switch, so we're just seeing a bit more information here. What I'll actually do is I will run down to one of our edge switches, as we see here. And here we can see a 1S edge switch here. We have the different switches, the different ports and all the different switches. So I'll run down to a port that is up and has some traffic running on it. And here, when we jump onto a specific port, we're able to actually see exactly which switch, port ID. So we have 3 on C2 is enabled, PoE status is enabled. We can turn off or reset PoE. Now, resetting PoE, not just in terms of on-off, but also resetting a device can make it very handy. So if we're looking to just power reset something or power cycle something, once again, it makes it very easy. We're not even having to shut down port and shut down, no shutdown. We don't have to go through the basic interface configurations. We can just do it from here quite easily. We're also able to see exactly how much power is being drawn. So when we
here's a quick feature, Tom. For those of you that have ever been in the field and you have to go up on a pole in the middle of winter to unplug and reset a camera that's not working, you're going to appreciate this feature very, very quickly by being able to do this from your warm office and just reset the camera and it will come back.
Yes, very much so. And once again, we're not jumping on to, we can do this for a number of different devices. As we have PoE, when we come out of here and we have PoE on our bar there, we can do this for a number of devices if we want to just set a number of cameras, which is really where the strength shows. It's the individual one-on-one management of a device. So this is undoubtedly still easier and more conventional. But when we are able to perform these on just a large number of devices, especially when we're thinking large corporations or campuses, this is where it really starts to become beneficial, and you'll really start to see how this saves time, saves effort, and saves the risk of human error again if we're doing this for interfacing or telnetting on, SSHing onto a number of devices and then doing it by interface. There's a lot more room for this to go somewhat wrong. As I jump over to device security, so if you can still see here, we have little symbols, and we saw in our security previously, we have symbols there about unauthorized and authorized rules. So once again, security is constantly growing, becoming one of the forefronts of IT, OT. Anything is just protecting your information and making sure that no one can jump on or maliciously do anything to your network. So what we're able to do here is create rules and authorize connections. So we have this here, this MAC address, whichever device is connected here, that's going to be allowed to draw PoE and to receive information. However, if we have anyone else who jumps on and our system is locked, so we can lock our system as we've shown there on a switch, on a port, on the entire system itself. So that will, if we lock our system and we have a MAC address that's not authorized or not allowed, it's not going to be given PoE. It's not going to be allowed to pull PoE on that port. It's not going to be allowed to send and transmit information. So it just shuts them out. Once again, keeps us sure that we're not having any malicious attacks or anyone coming onto our network. There again, it's OT as opposed to IT networks that these are dealing with. So with IT, you are going to have users connecting to Wi-Fi, people plugging in. You'll have guests coming who are for business meetings. You need to be a bit more flexible in how you're doing this, and then there's all that intricacy of how you identify and stuff. but here we're only having OT devices. So these shouldn't be changing throughout the course of the day, that they shouldn't be fluctuating that much. We should be seeing a pretty consistent system, a pretty consistent number of devices, and which devices are where shouldn't change either. So this just allows us to lock a system and make sure that no one's going to jump on and do anything. And that can be locked for a couple of months if the system is working properly as it is, whether or not the system that's in place and it's running and everything's going smoothly. We're not going to be making too many changes. It's not quite as dynamic as an IT system. It just allows us to lock and make these changes. Finally, then we also have a few additional details on the switch, the number of rules and the number of rules per port that we can have. Finally, we have our counters. So this, similar to when we were looking at our bandwidth or our functions, this we can go just specific to a port. We can go down to, we can do this by switch or by port, and we can just go into more detail. Once again, it just allows you we can come at these from different angles or so. So when we're going in through our ports, we can go in through our edge switch into our port, and it just allows us that if you're tackling different problems or even approaching things in a different way, it does make it more convenient that you're not jumping around, that you can just kind of consistently flow through into a switch, into a port, and make sure you're looking at this. I just found myself, especially when troubleshooting a number of issues, that it just allows you to kind of keep in the same train of thought or go looking at it, make it just a bit handier, a bit easier to be able to do this specifically. But as we go down to port, we can see again, no error, no discarded frames here. That's good. If we were seeing them get too high, then there might be an issue with this device or a problem here. So then we have, as we were saying, we have all the same ways we can, as we looked on the edge switch. Once again, one of the main things of our OneView system is just to have this all centralized. So what we're seeing here is effectively all the ports as if they were on one large switch. Save us having to jump between or telnet to different devices. We go down to
our. I'll take this one.
Perfect.
In terms of VLANs, this is where we start creating the different VLANs. So if you know what they are ahead of time, this is where you would set it. Obviously, you want to set a management VLAN separate than your standard other connected devices VLAN, primarily for the reason of if you have a problem with something in the field and it's creating a big broadcast storm, then you can your management will always be isolated from that, and it won't be impacted. So we can still get back in and turn a port off or do something else. But outside of that, as you start putting in these OT networks, and you're putting it in hopefully you're putting it in as an OT system, which means many other services are going to be riding on your network, specifically HVAC, maybe security, in terms of surveillance, access control, lighting, energy meters. The list goes on, depending on the configuration of the site. Here is a way that we can segregate that traffic by using VLANs separately. So we're going to take all HVAC traffic and we're going to make it blue. We're going to set it on VLAN 200, maybe, and then continue on from there. To add these is very, very simple. You simply click the add button.
Oops.
Yeah, we'll add a new one here. So you click the add button. You just click on the color. So you can change the color. You can either write it in by hex or you can choose whichever one you want manually. And then at that point, you can enter in the number. Say we want VLAN 200 here, or VLAN 30 is fine. I would always recommend to describe the VLAN. Unfortunately, on the VLAN name, we're limited by 8 characters, so you have to be a little bit specific and try and be as descriptive as possible within 8 characters. I know a lot of you old BMS guys, that used to be the limit way back when, so it's definitely doable, but try and make it useful as best as possible. But the advantage here is you can add a description to make it even more lengthy and describe it correctly. And that's it. That's as hard as the VLAN is. This VLAN will now, it's available throughout the entire system. So when you go back to your ports page, you can select multiple ports or individually and assign them to that VLAN. And from here, we can see right away how many ports have taken that VLAN and it helps a lot in the troubleshooting aspect. You can also, anytime you want to change VLAN, it's very simple to do. You just edit the VLAN, change it, and go from there. So we get about 5 to 10 more minutes in here, Tom. So let's go through quickly the security side and the devices, and then we're up for questions.
Perfect. So our security is quite simple now, just because we've kind of almost gone through it on the switch or on the port. One-click security. So once again, we can just lock a system, confirm, and then no new MAC addresses or no new devices are going to be able to jump on, get PoE, or transmit data. So this is just allow us.
Sorry, can you scroll down? Because this, once you lock it, it gives you an in-depth report of everything that was done. So this is, in this part, you can actually take this and copy it and put it in some sort of job book of stating the work that was done, when it was done, and what was done.
So it just allows more just transparency on the network. It allows you to just see everything again as well. Anything jumps out or anything that is unknown to you becomes more clear a lot quicker. So here we just locked there. You see it was completed. We completely locked. So we just lock our system now, and we might be able to keep this locked for a couple of months if we don't have any devices that are looking to jump on. And once again, it just makes that bit handier, more secure, and just easy to do it, especially if we do have we are at a time when we're going to install a load of new cameras, let's say, or something along the lines of that. We can just unlock, put them all in, lock the system again. It saves us having to go individually port by port, switch by switch. We go down to devices. This is just the number. This is the devices themselves connected to the switches on our network. So we can have the MAC address of these devices if they're authorized, and if the time they were discovered. So we can just see here whatever devices, what port, the port VLAN, what VLAN they're on, with description again if you want. So probably you'll be able to give a bit more. You can say where it is, where the camera is, possibly even if it's just be conscious of the power cable here has been known to get a bit loose, causing the device to power cycle. Small things of that, just once again, putting yourselves in a good position to be able to inform whoever's coming next, or even remind yourself when you're next going onto the system, what is the details of every device.
It's kind of the common thing here with this one. This is actually a pretty unique feature. I'm sure everyone's run into this, where you plug in a device that has DHCP enabled by default, and the second you plug it in, the lights light up, and you want to go into its IP address to go configure it and do something different. Well, because it got assigned DHCP, you don't know where it is anymore, right? It's on the network somewhere, but you can't quite find it. So if you had the MAC address of that device and you did an IP scan here, then you can actually search for the MAC. It'll tell you what port it was connected to, what switch it's on, what VLAN it's on, and what IP address it now has. And these are huge, huge features, because this is a very difficult thing. Obviously, you can use external tools like Angry IP Scanner and different things like that, but to be able to do it from the system that's connected to is very powerful. And this list does get automatically updated. Doing the IP scan is a bit more challenging because you have to determine the subnet and the VLAN that it's on. However, it does allow you to go get this information and find out where your missing device went.
Again, yeah, just making some of the more tedious tasks and more of the more tricky tasks that bit more easier to access, easier to do. I will jump over to the hybrid quickly and show the topology, or will I jump up here now?
Let's do the alarms and everything in the hamburger sign, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. So as you see up here, top right, we're able to see our alarms, our notifications. So we have a major, minor notifications. It's kind of just, once again, jumping out, nice red in the corner, make it very obvious if there is anything major. We can also set this up to email us if we do need, so that if we are not obviously on this site 24/7, or if we're not looking at it, we want to be able to react straight away, or even just get out ahead of our anyone who would know. We can have this as an email, so we can send out for dogs. We can set this to be for some of the major ones, some of the minor ones that tailor fit it a bit more. As you see here, we can have a number of events that can occur. This can be as small as user logins, user logouts. So with all this detail, it gives you just very granular detail, and when we're able to filter this by different events. So if we have a problem with a specific edge switch, we want to only have the major notifications. If we want to have only major notifications, we can see them there. We have our edge switch. We can filter that there. We can have our we're able to have our messages. So if we want to have something specific, if we want to look in and say when something a device went up or went down, anything along with the message, if we want to just, especially if we want to see has something been reoccurring or occurring regularly, which is where this becomes quite strong as well. We want to check that a system, if something happens and looks a bit suspicious, maybe one of the first things we want to check is, has this happened before? Is it a once-off or is this occurring? Especially with something like a device going up and down, can be an issue where you could have over the course of time with heat in the room and stuff, the cords can wiggle themselves out due to expanding and contracting. So they can cause small things like this. Possibly you can just look up and quickly find out, has this been happening? If it is a specific device, we can then look at this filter by the specific device and see what the filters are, and we can see when it was happening, how often, how regular, and just we can filter by a number of different functions as well. So it just makes it a lot easier for us to have notifications, especially once again, this is only demo system. We only have 1 or 2 devices, but when we have a large number of devices and a large campus, a large network, that's when we really start to see this become a lot easier, because with these alerts, we're able to see when something is going up and going down. This might even be apparent to us if we have, and we'd have to run through the logs or something. It'd be quite more difficult to get this information, especially when it comes to a large system. We can also then jump up, and once we're done with our alerts there, we can go up to our little hamburger sign. We can change some of the settings. This is more just app-based settings itself if we want to see push notifications and for changing our password. Obviously, recommendations is to change your password to keep it tricky enough. Don't have anything too easily guessable, not company name 1, not anything too obvious like that. I want to try to change that at least once a year. And we'll just go down to our user account. Here's another very handy function is that we have the availability to create new accounts very easily that we can have for being admin or read-only. So especially in a situation where we might have a group of contractors who are installing a system, installing a number of devices that are going to be on our OT network, and they might have to jump on to confirm just something that they're seeing, what they expect to see. However, we don't want to be giving them access to make changes or to make configuration changes, or even for a password and a login that we will want them to have for an extended period of time. If it's something small like a read-only, maybe we only need them to have it for a day or 2 when the work's been finished up. So we can create an account, we can add one, and then we can change it to read-only, and then we can delete it a day or 2 after the job is done. So it just gives us that flexibility to create accounts quite easily. Once again, not having to log on to each individual switch to create these accounts. With a bit of help from information, just more frequently asked questions. We also do have support. We have different means of going on, the general and all these systems. So just providing yourselves the information if you need any typical problems you run into, try and make it as easy for you guys and have everything there for you. So this is also just a kind of a guide for general that a lot of times when you're having issues, you might be able to log in here and see something similar or see a bit of advice. And so we'll jump in there, and we just have our reports. This is just for running our report for the system. Jump up here, and we'll be able to see a very detailed view of everything going on in our system. Probably good to be in the habit of taking these every at set intervals, regular times, so that if something does happen on your network, you can look back and see everything was perfect here, everything was running here, and see when the last time things were fine, so you can eliminate the possibility. And once again, just have yourselves all the information best equipped to deal with a situation in a timely manner. Here we go, we see other edge switches, status of the edge switch, ports, links up and down, VLAN mode, VLAN IDs, and just all the information, everything good that we just ran through there, all in one quick spot, laid out nicely for you. And we can just print that to PDF, save it somewhere, save it on a share. I believe that's everything with our Spectra system. So our Spectra being the passive optical network with the fiber, there is it's a bit easier. It's a bit cheaper to run 1 bit of fiber or so, just rather than running a load. But sometimes running fiber at all is not a possibility, or there may just be some connections that are running between buildings underground, where you might need to use our hybrid system, which is the one that allows for multi-mode fiber and for Ethernet connections.
Let's leave it right there, Tom, for questions, and then we'll wrap up. So any final questions before we wrap it up? And thank you for your time so far. All right, fantastic. Well, we really appreciate your time. If you ever have any questions that you want to have answered or want some more in-depth information on this, please reach out. We're happy to help at any time. This network is really designed for you and for you to manage all these devices that are coming into your networks. You really want to be in control of your own network, your own destiny, and this is a solution that can help you do that. Tom, thanks for the great webinar. Any final comments?
No, please reach out to us. I'm going to be happy to help, or will probably be myself to be in contact with if you have any queries or questions, or if you'd like to set up any more tailored fit specific demos or anything like that. So please don't be afraid to reach out. We're happy to help here always as well. Thanks so much, guys.
Alrighty, we'll see you next week on the Visual BACnet webinars.